King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to support the Subordinate Legislation Confirmation and Validation Bill. But I suspect there are a number of people out there listening today who are wondering what on earth is a Subordinate Legislation Confirmation and Validation Bill. Thousands of people are probably wondering what it is. A very grand title indeed. So I thought perhaps I'd just give a little explanation so that they could follow what this debate is. And what it is the subordinate legislation bills are introduced every year to confirm and or to validate what is called subordinate legislation. So what is subordinate legislation? Well, in fact, it is regulations and orders that are made by this Parliament. And so the purpose of this bill is to confirm that subordinate legislation, in this case regulations and orders, are able to continue so that they don't lapse. So that we, in fact, if they've got sunset clauses, we confirm that they can continue to carry on and continue in force. And so this is something that we do each year, and we bring in a bill. The Parliament is the one that decides on this, because this is an area where Parliament has already decided that it doesn't just allow the Cabinet to make decisions in terms of the executive making regulations. So this particular bill is covering 6 acts, confirming regulations in them. And what are they? The Animal Products Act 1999, the Commodity Levies Act 1990, the Customs and Excise Act of 1996, our New Zealand Superannuation and Retirement Income Act 2001, and the Social Security Act of 1964, the Road User Charges Act of 2012, and the War Pensions Act of 1954. And so this bill actually covers those main areas. And you might wonder what sort of issues are covered in those particular acts. So if you take the Commodities Levies Act of 1990, it makes orders on things, a commodity levy on things like navel oranges, on kiwi fruit, nashi pears, arable crops, cereal silage, maize orders, asparagus, and so on. And then if you look at what happens under the orders being made under the Custom and Excise Act, you will see that orders are being made on tobacco products, the indexation of tobacco products. So the indexation of excise duty is brought about by confirmation of these orders. And this is an area that I have particular interest in, because we do know that if we do have an increased price in tobacco, we also have a corresponding reduction in the consumption of tobacco. And of course there are those out there who think that the earth is still flat and tobacco has absolutely nothing to do with cancer. There are others who have proven over many years that tobacco, cigarettes, no matter how many you smoke, it's going to be bad for you. The first one is bad for you, and so are the 60 you smoke every day. And so we do know that increasing the excise on tobacco is likely to lead to people stopping smoking. It's been said to me over the years, why would we want to penalise the poor by putting up the price of tobacco? And my answer is, why would we let tobacco companies kill poor people? Because that's what this product does. It's one of the only products that if you take it is likely to lead to your death. And so I totally support raising the excise duty on tobacco, and I'd imagine there are very few people who would be opposed to that. It also it deals with the excise duty on alcoholic beverages, but amongst that we also have motor spirits, toothfish, and so it's quite a broad-ranging order indeed. The other one I wanted to talk about is the road user charges of 2012, and this increases road user charges through an order. And this really came out of an experience I had as Minister of Transport. And I see Mr Colin King smiling over there because he probably remembers the event very well. You see, when I was Minister of Transport, I decided that I would increase road user charges because there had been one increase in road user charges on vehicles over 3.5 tonne since 1989. And as you know, road user charges is the way we ensure that those who drive heavy vehicles help to pay for their share of the roads. And I'm sure the member for Invercargill will be very aware of the damage that big vehicles do to roads, and particularly local roads, down in an area where you have a lot of farming and you have big vehicles on the road, and the damage they do in cutting out those roads. But and particularly in Southland, in fact, there's a major problem in Southland because the funding that goes into maintenance of local roads in our rural areas has been cut by this government, and you will see the results of that in the years to come. Because if you don't maintain your roads and you don't have enough money coming in through your road user charges and other avenues, you will pay for it in the future when it costs you much more to go back to square one to repair your infrastructure. And so road user charges is the way that we get heavy vehicles to contribute to their cost. In fact, it is my view they don't completely pay for the damage that they actually do on the roads. But when I was Minister, I decided to increase the road user charges, and it was actually quite a modest increase in road user charges. For example, a typical 5-tonne truck would pay an additional $53 every 10,000 kilometres, while a 23-tonne axle truck, 23-tonne 4-axle truck, was expected to pay around $198 for 10,000 kilometres, and it made up about 10% of a total truck's operating cost. So you can see the impact it would have had on freight was quite small. What did it do? Because I increased it, one increase since 1989, we had the truckies go on strike. And so they blocked the roads around New Zealand and big convoys of trucks. They didn't like to have an increase in road user charges. So I then said, OK, we'll undertake a review in the way we set road user charges and in terms of the notification and what notice is given that the road user charges will go up. One of the reasons that there was not notification in the particular occasion when I was Minister was the year before I had increased it very marginally and had given notice, and within 3 days there was something like $21 million of forward buying of road user charges certificate to try and avoid the increase. It was sort of like going out and filling up your car with petrol if you think the excise duty is going to be put up on budget night and hope that you've got a windfall because you've avoided having to pay the extra cost. Of course, there was a famous occasion in this Parliament when one of the opposition members of the National Party, when we were in government in the 80s, who decided, I won't name him, who decided that petrol excise was bound to go up that night in the budget. He rushed out and he filled up his car, rubbing his hands with glee, only to find the excise duty was put down. And in fact, he made a loss. But what came out of my experience in road user charges is the setting of, giving notice of setting, and this is what it came out of that review. And under this order, it is set at a particular time, and there is enough notice for them to know that it's going to be set, but also mechanisms in place so there cannot be a whole lot of forward buying to avoid having to pay what is a legitimate cost of vehicles on the road. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a standard bill that we have before the House. It does validate orders and regulations that are made by this Parliament, and Labor supports the bill.
Nikki Kay.